on Community Engaged Policing, Community Engagement Subcommittee, and it's May 14th. I will pass it over to Co-Chair Carrie to get us started.
Thank you. We'll start with PCCEP member introductions, and then we'll move on to the city. And members of the public, if you would introduce yourselves in chat when it's open, please. My name's Carrie Driver. I use she, her pronouns. I've been a PCCEP member for about a year and a half, maybe a little longer, and recently stepped in as the co-chair for the Community Engagement Subcommittee with Noel Qatar. And Odelia, I'll ask you to introduce next.
Oh, thanks, Carrie. Hi, my name's Odelia. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm one of the full committee co-chairs. And I'll pass it to Devonte.
Hello, everyone. Devonte Manyweather. I am the other full committee co-chair of PCCEP. And thank everyone for coming. And I'll pass it off to Leslie.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Leslie Martinez. My pronouns are she, hers, and I'm a member of the policy subcommittee. I think that's it. I'm the last one.
Dory, do you want to kick off the city?
Yep, I'm Dory Grabinski, PCCEP Program Manager. Thank you for being here. And I'll pass it to Stephanie.
Hi, everybody. Stephanie Howard, she, her pronouns, and I am the Director of Community Safety for the city. I'm happy to see you all. I'll hand it over to Mary Claire.
Good evening, everyone. Mary Claire Buckley from the Portland Police Bureau. And sorry, I don't see.
Maybe Afrida, if you want to introduce yourself next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Afrida Davis, pronouns she, her, and I'm a facilitator.
Okay, and yes, members of the public, please introduce yourself in the chat.
And Antoinette can go ahead too.
Oh, Antoinette, I'm sorry. My apologies.
Greetings all. Antoinette Edwards, a member of the Independent Monitoring Team. She, her pronouns. And I'll pass it to whoever gets it.
I think we might be done.
Oh, okay.
Leave the best for last. Okay, I'll read the community agreements. We agree to listen actively and respectfully, to share airtime, to be present and open to new information and perspectives, to assume positive intent, to respect each other, respect the group, to speak our own truth, to communicate directly, honestly, and respectfully, to ask questions to clarify, to call out bias, and to be okay with ambiguity. Next slide. Thanks. So today's agenda will include updates, and then we'll discuss the Portland Police Bureau Community Engagement Plan status and next steps. And then we'll identify next steps, and then we'll open to the public at 7:50. Okay, so here are our updates. Do you want to cover that, Dory, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can cover this, and then Antoinette can probably help as well. So as I think most people should know, but if not, PCCEP's full committee meeting this month on May 28th will be replaced by the Independent Monitor Team's Town Hall, where they'll be presenting their draft report of essentially how the city is progressing with the remedies of the settlement agreement. And they also want to hear any other feedback the public has about policing in Portland, anything you want them to know. So there will be plenty of time for discussion. Antoinette, anything you want to add?
Thank you. First of all, I really want to thank PCCEP for sharing space with us and really all of the support. We're excited for the first town hall. We want it to be engaging, and it's going to be at McMenamin's historical school in the community. And I think that's it. There's going to be refreshments, and we're asking people to RSVP because there is limited space, but it will all be always also be hybrid. So you have opportunities to be a part of it both ways. And if you have any questions, please feel free. And we look forward to seeing everyone. And thank you again, PCCEP.
Thank you, Antoinette and Dory. That's going to be a great event. We look forward to it. And we also, should I go into the story?
Yeah, I think we have a little space. This is kind of just putting out some, putting it out there basically.
Okay. In recent meetings, the PCCEP committee members have talked about the unique position we're in right now, where our settlement agreement has been driving us to do all this great work. And yet a lot of people may not know why PCCEP exists or the history of the settlement agreement. And we believe that we'll get some great interaction and be able to reach some new people if we have a community event that talks about the history of the settlement, talks about the organizations, our amici partners that led to the Department of Justice investigation, and talks about the impact on the families and then the importance of what came out of the settlement agreement. Especially in light of recent federal changes where, some cities are being affected. In our first conversations about that potentially impacting Portland, everyone from the city's office to the Portland Police Bureau have talked about how the settlement agreement has improved the way we work in Portland. And we just want to have an event to show people where PCCEP came from and how it works together with the city and the Department of Justice and the Portland Police Bureau to make, Portland a better place.
While we have a little time, one thing that we have talked about as this idea has come up is the idea of partnership for something like this. So I guess I'm wondering, anybody here, if you have suggestions about who PCCEP should partner with or who they would need to hear from, or, plan an event like this in conjunction with.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you. You could go ahead, Antoinette.
Just a thought, when we met with the city councilors, the monitoring team, some have been very open and inviting us to be a part of their town hall. So I would suggest that if they're having town halls, to maybe ask to be a part of that, or let them know that you're open to it. So I think it's like strengthening the relationships with our city council, and just letting people know, because there's all the districts. I just think it's a wonderful opportunity if they just give you a few minutes, and then if they want more, to build on it. So that's my piece.
Thank you. Great. If anyone, Odelia?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely including AMAC or the Albina Ministerial Alliance Coalition and the Mental Health Alliance would be critical. Yeah, and then I don't know too, with like if people who, like, families of people who were killed by PPB would be interested in that, but definitely offering that space, or like connecting with Pacific Northwest Family Circle for that. Those are the first things that come to mind.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, just something to think about, especially some of the folks here, I think, are real historians on this settlement agreement, much more so than I am. And so if you have ideas to share with us, as we're thinking about an event like this, feel free to reach out to us via email or any other way you want to get in touch. Yeah, we'd be happy to hear your thoughts, especially about, you know, who you would want to feature this kind of event, and with the goal of sharing that history with a broader public.
Thank you. Okay, and if ideas pop up later, feel free to pop them in the chat or share with them during our public comment period. So now we're going to talk about the PPB Community Engagement Plan. So I think I'm just going to read this. Is that, if that's okay? To give you context.
Yeah, and Carrie, I'll just say, so just to frame this up for the audience, this kind of question around the plan came up, and so in conjunction with the subcommittee chairs, staff did a bit of research here. So this is probably just going to be, Carrie will just sort of present some of this information. I think there's kind of a lot, and then we can discuss. So probably more slides at a time than we might be used to, but we can stop whenever too, if you want.
Okay. I'm going to start by saying that the settlement agreement between the Portland Police Bureau and the Department of Justice names a PPB Community Engagement Plan as a requirement to meet the agreements, to meet the settlement agreement stipulations. And it specifically stipulates that our committee, PCCEP, has the ability to help shape the plan. We used to do that, and in 2019 was an example of a year where we provided input in the plan was created. Whether or not we provided input, we're not sure, but the Portland Police Bureau created a community engagement plan and published it. And since then, we have expressed interest in my 2 years almost on PCCEP several times about this community engagement plan, and it's been difficult to find the current version of it. And there was some misunderstanding about whether another document was the new name for it. However, recently we confirmed that there has been no Portland Police Bureau Community Engagement Plan since 2019. We wanted to raise this as part of the committee meeting today. And it falls in line with what the independent monitor is doing regarding the settlement agreement. And recent incidents involve town halls of elected officials having generated questions from public and legal watchdogs about bureau-wide community engagement strategy. So it's been relevant and it's been on our mind. We have not dug to the bottom of it, but recently with the negative reactions and the experience of people going to town halls with city councilors and having police officers show up have made the idea of what is PPB's community engagement plan that surfaced to the top again. And the annual budget's coming up as well. So we're interested, how are they going to spend the money? We recently reviewed their annual plan. It had some information about community engagement, but not nearly, nowhere could we find a big picture. And we're very curious about that. So yes. Next slide. So in the settlement agreement, the specific language is that PCCEP will be authorized to, here's the language, provide ongoing feedback to PPB regarding community engagement initiatives already in progress and those added/needed in the future. So that's part of it. And then the city is responsible for, here's the language, ensure constitutional policing, to closely interact with the community to resolve neighborhood problems and to increase community confidence. PPB shall work with city resources knowledgeable about public outreach processes, the PCCEP and PPB's equity and diversity manager to develop a community engagement plan, which shall be adopted by council following a public hearing. So that is what the settlement agreement said way back when, and that was what was being done until 2019. Okay, more quotes. PCEP shall suggest for inclusion in the community engagement plan strategies to ensure greater public outreach and engagement, including opportunities for outreach to a broad cross-section of community members. The parties recognize that meaningful public engagement involves the ability of community members to affect policies, practices, and PPB culture, thereby improving outcomes and eliminating unconstitutional actions. PCEP may also provide information to the PPB on other areas related to meaningful community engagement and outreach to contribute to the development of the community engagement plan. The plan will specify how to integrate community values and problem-oriented policing principles into PPB's management policies and procedures. So, yeah, PCEP is a PPB community engagement plan is actually named 13 times throughout the settlement agreements and the PCEP plan, which is an amendment of the settlement agreement. So our question is, was the plan intended to be a one-time thing or a steering document that would be revisited annually to integrate community values and problem-oriented policing principles into PPB's management policies and procedures? Here at PCEP, we're very interested in the community engagement that PPD does. So in 2019, they said that their community engagement plan will serve as a foundation for building an ongoing comprehensive strategy that can be tailored to any specific community's needs and their particular cultural framework. There are 4 key areas outlined in the plan: public involvement, communications, access, and training. So, in conclusion, this plan is envisioned as a living document that will be reviewed and revised over time as tasks are completed and new ones are added. The Bureau contemplates an annual discussion with PCEP, as well as officers and other community members, about its progress in achieving the proposed outcomes, as well as what additions should be made to meet the changing needs of the entire community. That's from 2019, talking about it being an ongoing comprehensive strategy. So in the PCEP conversations we've been having, the main one is, why isn't there a PPB community engagement plan? And then when we learned the last one was 2019 or 2019, why hasn't there been one since 2019? And then another question is, if the plan was part of the settlement agreement, every year the PPB's is monitored and analyzed for whether or not they meet the requirements of the settlement agreement. And then why has the absence of the plan not been mentioned in the formal COCO reports? And then what approach does PPB currently take to share information about community engagements with the public and to ensure the workforce is accountable to those practices? And I'd add, to allow dialogue and feedback about the practices. So yes, our last meeting was about the annual report from PPB, and it touched on some community engagements, and PCEP members were interested in learning more about the community engagement. And so, yeah, the approach doesn't feel fulfilling enough for us. So we're just trying to figure out how it dropped off, what we're going to do. Yeah. So I would invite PCEP members to throw in some of their own opinions and ideas and questions at this time.
I feel like I have the same questions on the slides, essentially, of like where it seems like there was an oversight of this in like multiple arenas, and I'm curious what, like specifically for monitoring, what that means and what that entails, and how it will or won't affect like things being in or out of compliance. But I feel like because it's legal, I don't know, it probably won't, even though it should, but I don't know how it works. And then yeah, why hasn't this been something from PPP? Another main question, but I'm curious to hear what other folks think.
Before we move on to city people, Leslie or Devante, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I guess I'll add. Yeah, that is a pretty massive oversight, and yeah, what like Odelia said, some of the same questions arise for me that are mentioned in the slide, and then you know, community engagement plan is so essential for improving relations between PPB and the public. And we've seen some pretty large, instances of public unrest. If you want to look at like the, some of the 2020 protests, and then like even the PSU protest, there there is definitely some trust, I think, lost between PPB and the public during those instances, and how certain people felt like they were responded to. And, I think that kind of makes a bit of sense due to the fact that there's not been a plan released since 2019. So, I mean, to me, it just makes sense, I guess. So hopefully, we can kind of get some answers and kind of get a little bit of insight as to how this happened. 6 years is a really unfortunate amount of time lost. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I've got nothing really to add because, I mean, I guess one thing, thank you for bringing this to everyone's attention, that it was such a big oversight. I'm wondering if part of the reason that it could have kind of fallen off, and I guess I don't really know, is if like it was part of a remedy that was listed as in compliance, and maybe that's why it wasn't brought up ever again. Just kind of trying to think through how it could have fallen through so many cracks. But that would be my one thought. But yeah, I guess now we just want to identify next steps and how to re-engage this like very important element.
Right. Is there anybody who can address the, I know we had some staff research that helped us find out the 2019 date. Is there anyone who wants to address, what might have happened in 2019?
Sure. I'd be happy to. It's Mary Claire. I'll give you my best recollection. And I provided some of this information to Dory when I first saw some of the emails. But as you all may know, COAB was, your predecessor committee was abolished in January of 17, I believe. And so during the course of the following year, they worked on developing a successor, committee, and the PCCEP was formed. And in April of 18, the settlement agreement was amended to provide for the PCCEP. And that's where that requirement came up. They added a paragraph 142, which said that one of the responsibilities of the PCCEP would be to contribute to the development and implementation of a PPB community engagement plan. So at that time, the Bureau, as you've seen from Chief Outlaw's letter, we commenced that process. We engaged with the, first PCCEP group at that time, worked with them and developed a community engagement plan. Dory, I don't know if you've provided that document to the group or not, but
We did
Okay.
get it.
okay. So you'll see that we developed, there were, 4 areas, as you mentioned, the public involvement, communications, the training, and the, what's my other one? Oh, access. And certain goals were established. Oops, where'd I go? Oops, sorry. And, there was action items and then, outcomes, due dates and what have you, all set up. And to your point, it did say that it required us to bring it to you to PCEP each year, to ask for continued improvement or to ask the committee if they wanted us, to get an update first on the, particular items that we had identified, and also to ask if the PCEP had any additional ones to add. And I will tell you, I went back and PCEP did contribute to this. There were a number of recommendations that were included in here that you brought to our attention. And so we continue to do that. We went to the PCEP, I know, for at least another couple. The original one was approved by you guys, and then I think we approached for the following couple of years. On the 3rd year, I brought it to the PCEP, and the chair, we had a discussion about getting it on your agenda, because we didn't want to just, show up and what have you. So, I was informed that, the interest in doing this, wasn't there, and that they people didn't want at that time to have it as an agenda item. So we left it that we would, we weren't going to force it on you, but that if at any time the Bureau would be more than willing to continue this this endeavor, basically. And I just want to take a little bit of issue with the idea that we haven't had a condition, a community engagement plan since then. This plan still, actually, to your idea about a living document, it is still a living document. And even though a number of these things have been accomplished, if you look at the action items, lots of them have been accomplished in the past, but they're also continuing obligations, with communication and with access and those kind of things. And, I think you all know we have a community engagement office. We have a community engagement officer. Then we now even have a division in the Bureau that is focused on community engagement. And I think you may recall Officer Natasha Hansberger has come and spoken to your, either the large committee or your subcommittee on a number of occasions. At Assistant Chief LaBelle has been, he is the AC of that division. And now Captain Abrahamson is the captain. And unfortunately, he's on vacation this week, so wasn't. So I'm your stand-in, basically. So I will try and give you as much information as I can. I certainly know the history, but in terms of the current thing, the current plan, we may have to have this as an ongoing discussion, only because I know that Captain Abrahamson has indicated they are working on it. I would also say it also mentioned the equity plan. I don't know if Brody's here tonight. He comes sometimes, but I can't see the group. But part of our community engagement is also included in our racial equity plan. So it certainly hasn't been abandoned by the Bureau at all. If anything, I would tell you, I would tell you that I think that our community engagement efforts are, even greater than they were in 2018-19 when we developed this plan. A number of advisory councils have been developed since this time, and you have the CAG, which is a centralized of all our advisory groups as well, so that all the advisory committees know what the others are doing, things like that. I think the communications folks have tried to improve access to the information with lots more social media, all those kind of things. So it is a living thing, and we have continued to do it. But you're right, there was an interest, it fell off, but I think the Bureau would welcome your renewed interest in this. We would be happy and to have your participation in this. I know that they are working on some new or some kind of plan. It's obviously part of our overall strategic plan, but Captain Abrahamson would be better to, to give you those details, in a future meeting. But I can tell you that it is a very active and engaged unit that is constantly out working, with various communities. And I think Antoinette can attest to that as well. She's had a number of interviews, or conversations with our community engagement folks. And so be happy to, pursue this with you and answer any other questions you have. But that's basically the history of it. Is it sort of fell off only because at that time, that particular group, didn't have the same interest. And frankly, to your point, you have been raising it recently, but that's it hadn't been raised for a while. So like I said, more than happy to renew this and to bring into whatever Captain Abrahamson has planned for a future. I don't know if it's a new document or whether it's an expansion of this one. I guess that'll be up to the unit. But I expect a lot of those same things, but would be part of it. Those key areas of community engagement.
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you, Mary Claire Buckley. And also thank you for sitting in tonight. I recognize that we're talking about something when the guy's on vacation and he's going to come back and be like, oh, surprise. But it's been on our mind. So Adelia was up first. Leslie was second. I'm just going to throw my question out there, but then pass it to Adelia before any answers. But
Yeah.
I just am thinking, just because PCCEP chose not to, or the chair in 2019 chose not to input, why did PPB not feel that it was their responsibility to still create and publish a plan? I guess that's what I'm thinking. But I'd like to hear the other questions first, starting with Odelia.
No, if you want to answer that now, that would be great.
Sure. I mean, I will tell you, because we had the plan. This plan has only been, added to or continued. Like I said, this didn't disappear because they didn't want to review it every year. This still was in effect, and we continued on some of these goals are, as I said, ongoing. And so this document that we created back then is still, in our mind, a living document as well.
That's fair, and I also know you're not representing the office that you're representing the office that other people might speak for. But Dory did share in the chat that Natasha Hunsberger, who couldn't make it tonight, said that there is no current plan, that the 2019 one is no longer valid.
Well, yeah. I don't know if I can't speak to what she said. It's hard for me to do that because she's the one that does all of this anyway. So I don't know if there was a misunderstanding or whether she just meant she had accomplished a lot of those goals or what. I wasn't privy to that conversation. Okay. But Natasha, it would be hard pressed for me to think she didn't think that we had one. I mean, that woman works day and night on community engagement. So
I know.
Yeah.
I recognize that. It's just the simple statement was there's no active community engagement plan. So that's
yeah. Yeah, and I'm not sure where that came from, to be honest. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Adelia?
Yeah, I have a few questions, but just to clarify, when you say it's a living document, does that mean, how is that like used in the Bureau as a guiding document?
Well, I think that the community engagement unit or the community engagement officer, continues to do a lot of these to do activities that were outlined from the beginning. So, for example, it said create a outside equity council. That's an ongoing obligation. So it's still many of the things that were developed are, as I said, which makes it breathing document, is that they are ongoing efforts. establish a Latino advisory council. They've done that, and that's ongoing. That's all I meant, is this, that many of the things that we outlined in 19 weren't just a one and done. They were create them and keep them going. And we have sustained many of these things. As I said, we established an inclusive advisory council, which was the CAG, which was the chairs of each one of the advisory councils, so that all the advisory councils associated with the Bureau would know what each other's doing. And I think even somebody from PCCEP is going to, I don't know, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if PCCEP, but all our other advisory councils, they all meet together. So that's why I say it's still going, is because many of the things established continue to be done, to this day, and our, monthly meetings, whatever, outreach efforts continue. One of them was to do comprehensive training to the members on how to, use interpreters. That, I just went through one of those trainings on LMS recently. So they're constantly, training. There's a lot of training done by the community engagement folks on how, we deal with various communities in Portland and stuff like that. So it's just, as I see it, this was a framework, and it is just continued to influence everything that, Natasha was originally the one officer, and as I said, it's become a unit. There is a captain. We've just hired a coordinator as well. And so all of those people will be working, continuing to work on these goals. And like I said, any future goals that are, added to this list. And I would hope that PCCEP would be part of, identifying some of those additional or new goals, if that's what you would like to do.
Yeah, I think we definitely, or not, I'm not going to speak for all of us, but I definitely would like to see an updated type of plan, or whatever that looks like. I think like what I'm hearing from you is that document, a lot of the goals, the things in it are kind of like goals for the Bureau, but it's not really like vision plan thing that all of PPB looks to as like their community engagement plan. So I feel like that's kind of like from what's written in the settlement agreement too, of like not just doing work with PCCEP, but also with community members and getting in like feedback on community engagement and the plan there. I feel like that's kind of, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I think we're involved with lots of advisory groups. We probably have 8 or 9 in the Bureau alone, between the TAC, the BHAC, the CAG, the, Latin advisory, the Muslim, the Slavic. So there are a number of different communities that we outreach with all the time and get their input. They're, very active groups now that are constantly, providing feedback to the Bureau. So, so that part is being done. There's a lot of work from, by that group, and ultimately from all the members of the Bureau. They are involved in lots of different community engagement activities that vary from shop with a cop to, and parades, whatever it is. There's lots of different things, and that would be, again, something that the PCCEP could help decide what other kinds of activities you might want to see us be engaged in. But I think we have an app that is helps to track a lot of the activities that the members do. So we I could get you a list of the different activities that all the members. It's not just the community engagement unit. This applies to all the members of the Bureau that are engaged in those kind of activities with our community.
Okay. That's great. One of the officers at our last meeting mentioned that when they were reviewing the annual report, they mentioned the apps and they could share stats. So they might already be doing it. You might not have a new thing. Thank you, Odelia and Devante.
Um, Thanks, Carrie. Sorry, I was in transit. Yeah, I really appreciate you kind of stepping in and fielding some of these questions, Mary Claire. Um, yeah, I think you're doing an amazing job. Yeah, like I said, it is just a massive oversight, but I'm happy to hear that PPB has continued to do some of those things that kind of uh, check some of those boxes, and that we've kept those things that you guys have established going, and that it wasn't just a one and done, and that those things are still going. Um, I do um, I do concur with some of my colleagues here, in that it doesn't necessarily provide a bigger picture view of what the overall trajectory is, what the long-term plan is, how the strategies are kind of being adjusted to compensate for new developments. And I think that that's extremely important. But I do think that regardless of whether or not PCCEP expresses an interest, that PPB would benefit greatly from just continuing to release that document and saying, hey, this is what we're doing, because I think it really does serve as a great tool to build trust, right? To just take the initiative and say, hey, we did just have this community police academy. These are all the groups that showed up. This is what happened. And, this is a way that we are trying to do our best to be transparent about, the things that we're teaching new hires, things like that of that nature. I was at a city council meeting, and fire and rescue was talking about, they just kind of listed off all these different ways that they're engaging with the community, different collaboration efforts they have with schools and all sorts of things. And when I didn't know about any of that, but after hearing that, it kind of, boosts morale, and it makes you hopeful, and, that they're really doing their best to engage the community. And I know PPB is as well. And so I just want to see some of that stuff just kind of be, transcripted onto a document, and then, blast it out to the community to say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how we're trying to engage. And, that those kind of updates are really nice to have. And so, yeah, I would just like to see it get started again, and it to be an annual document.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Devante, and I think you're right. I think sometimes the Bureau doesn't do a very good job of tooting its own horn. There is a lot that goes on with regards to the members and their interaction with the community, and so we should talk about how best you think that would be publicized, whether it's on the social media and on our website, a newsletter. I don't know. I whatever, was certainly open to hearing what you would do, but or even publishing some of the data, as she was just saying, about from the in community engagement app, although that probably doesn't even cover it, because it relies on people remembering to fill it in, like I have to do after this meeting, for example, or whatever. But certainly we could let you know of all the various activities, and I think you'd be impressed. I think I don't know, Dory, whether the attachment was part of the document that I sent you, but there was an appendix to this plan that showed back then, all the different types of community engagement that the Bureau was engaging in. Maybe that would be a something to do, or we could bring that information to PCCEP on a regular basis, if you'd like, or, certainly open to hearing what you'd like from us in order to accomplish that.
That's Great, thank you, Mary Claire. I think next steps is what we'll get to next. So hopefully we'll have some clear definitive asks at that time. Leslie?
Yeah, so I lowered my hand, but then I raised my hand again because I lowered my hand because everybody was already saying everything that I wanted to say. But I raised my hand again because I do want to call out that personally, I feel that there's a very fine line between purposeful, meaningful engagement and PR, right? And so I'm hearing a lot of great things that the community is doing, or that the PPB and the police department is doing to engage the community. Part of the reason that I think we're asking for this community engagement plan is not just because we want to see what they're doing in the community, but because we want to know how that engagement is being planned in order to improve policing and increase public safety in a meaningful way, and is not just activities that the police is doing in the community. So I do want to make sure that, we're not just asking for the plan for plan's sake and to kind of know what's going on, but because that is the ultimate purpose of these engagement, or should be the purpose of these engagement activities.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to Adelia before you, Stephanie, just to hit the PCEP members, and then we'll get to you afterwards.
Oh, I was just gonna essentially ask what Leslie was asking, but just like reading those quotes again. I think the settlement agreement defines community engagement that PCEP would do, as it says PCEP may also provide information to the PPB on other areas related to meaningful community engagement and outreach to contribute to the development of the plan. The plan will, oh, I'm reading the wrong part. Oh my God. Okay, here it is. PCEP shall suggest for inclusion in the community engagement plan strategies to ensure. Okay, I'm reading the wrong part again. Third time's a charm. So sorry. Okay. The parties recognize that meaningful public engagement involves the ability of community members to affect policies, practices, and PPB culture, thereby improving outcomes and eliminating unconstitutional actions. So just building on kind of what Leslie said, like that's got to be a big aim of community engagement work, and something I think we're all really curious and like how to support with that and shape those policies, and also to bring that to the community to have that kind of work too. And I'll put the quote in the chat because I messed it up 3 times. So
Thanks, Adelia. I'm sorry to put you off again, Stephanie, but I'm going to go with Devante.
I'll let Stephanie go. Actually, I'm not home, so I'm kind of on my phone trying to sift through everything and keep up. I want to actually take a look at what Odelia just posted, and then I think I'll respond after reading that.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Thank you. So just a couple of points that I just wanted to highlight, and this is my own personal experience and perspective on this. I have had many instances in working with lots of different folks at PPB over the years on different things and saying, oh, hey, the settlement agreement requires blah, blah, blah under paragraph, blah, blah, blah. And they're going, what? That's directive such and such. And so I want to like just call out that I think sometimes, especially when we're talking about something that's 5 or 6 years old, we have a lot of new members that have never been part of PPB before the settlement agreement and before some of the things that have been implemented in this plan. And so and Natasha's been with the Bureau for a long time, so I don't mean her specifically, but I wonder if her answering that question is in the way she did, saying there's not a plan, is because so many of these things have been embedded in other ways throughout sort of her daily practice of things, and she just isn't connecting, oh, there's this document from 6 years ago that spells out all the things that we're already doing. So I just want to put that there, just because I think for us, when we talk about things, it's very clear we're talking about things aligning with the paragraphs of the settlement agreement, and that's not the way that a lot of them think about the same things because they're learning about it in training based on policies or on directives that have come in a different form than they may associate with this specific document. And so all of that is to say, I think to the point that this is a living document, I think I'm worried that folks are reading this as this only covered the time period of 2019 to 2020. And I don't think that's what this is at all. I think Mary Claire is trying to express like, this is developed, this it was developed over a couple of years with a lot of engagement from PCCEP at the time. And this is when it came out, but it wasn't like it was over in 2020. And so I'm wondering if there's not some, misunderstanding about that, because I don't think it is a like this only covers the period of 2019 to 2020.
Right. I hear you on that, and I don't think there is confusion. I think we understand that PPB considers the plan that was published in 2019 as a living document, that they're still part of their 6-year strategy.
Yeah, and the last
totally
thing,
understandable. Yeah,
great. And the last thing I just wanted to say is, I mean, I think this conversation is perfect for great. Let's reinvigorate the collaboration on this, and let's bring it up to, update it from a perspective that Portland has now 6 years later, which is probably different in a lot of ways from 2018. And so this, I'm happy that you all are raising it, and I think PPB, especially right now amidst the transformation in the form of government and changes structurally throughout the city, there's a lot of work going into strategic planning on many different levels, including at PPP. So I feel like this is really kind of great timing to re-engage PCCEP in, updating this and making sure that, PCCEP's thoughts and suggestions and recommendations are incorporated in this, ongoing effort. So appreciate that.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, I think that's our main question, is so much has happened since 2019 and the public has not had a chance to input on whether or not that's the public's priority for public engagement. So it's a good point. Good timing. Go ahead, Odelia.
Yeah, I just wanted to also respond to Stephanie that I don't think that's where the confusion is coming from the year, but just like because we've heard that there isn't a plan being referenced, I think regardless of the year it's from, I think if it was like truly a living document that the Bureau like lived by and really like followed Bureau-wide, then it would be or should be more known and like talked about. So I guess that's kind of where like I'm seeing the discrepancy. And then I also think like I've been at a number of council meetings where Chief Day has spoken towards like community engagement, and a lot of times officers can just like they're sometimes directed to attend things and they also can decide to attend things. So I think like that's, if there isn't this like plan that the things I think listed around like policy, how to engage, all these things are so important, then that worries me a little bit more, because like officers can just like go to things and attend things, but at what are they following? And I know that there are directives and other things with that, but I do think like this plan is also crucial. And I guess it is confusing that it's for 2019 and 2020, just because, and like to say it's living but hasn't been worked on is confusing as well, even if it's still followed.
Yeah, and that was the date of the original. I mean, that's when this was sent. That plan was the original one. In the following years, I don't have, I mean, this similar document would have been presented the next year to see if any additions were on. But as I said, it was not. The only reason that's dated was because that's the first one that was, after we had worked on it with PCCEP, that was the plan that was developed, and it was for that, it was for that year because we were going to go back and do annual ones. So, and the only other thing I wanted to say, because it keeps coming up, and I do think that There's been some misunderstanding, and when next meeting we can have, Natasha clear it up. But I do recall her telling me, and it may have related to that I believe Captain Abrahamson had told Tia that they were working on a community engagement plan, new one. He's new to that unit, or relatively new. And I think maybe if she said that we don't have one, she may have been referring to a new one because they had asked, for a copy of it when they had asked Captain Abrahamson to appear tonight. So I do, am concerned that you think that, it is that there isn't one, or they haven't been working with one, or what have you, because it is a very active and engaged unit, and if you look at the contents of this one, you will see that many of the things are done, as I said, on a weekly, daily, monthly basis that are in that plan. So it clearly is guiding the Bureau on an ongoing basis. But I think that Captain Abrahams had indicated to Tia that he was working on, something new. And that, as I wrote to Dory the other day, we don't have a new document to give you yet. And I'm sure when Captain Abrahamson comes back, and they start working on it, just because of your interest now, this is, as Stephanie said, is a perfect time for us to re-engage the process of soliciting your input, as well as the input of other community members in developing whatever new document results from that.
Okay, thank you both. It does seem like parts of history might be a mystery, but it sounds like we're starting to know what we want moving forward, and that the city is very interested in engaging. I wanted to point out that Noelle is here. Hi, Noelle. Welcome.
Hi, I apologize for being late, but I did go over all the documents and slides before, so I'm pretty caught up, except kind of wondering where we're at right now. It sounds like we're talking and discussing the new document or new interest that we have kind of in the community engagement plan for PPB, and like our involvement in that and what that will look like. I know that we have some absences right now, so there's not going to be a lot of information on that, but definitely interested in continuing and participating in whatever that development looks like.
That's great. And I'm sorry to hear about your exciting distraction earlier, but we're not quite at the next steps yet. Right now, we're just discussing what the situation is and figuring out like where we stand. And I also wanted to point out that Sarah Ames joined since we had introductions. Sarah, would you mind briefly giving a quick introduction? Or maybe when she comes back, she'll do it quick, or when she's ready, she can introduce herself. Devante?
Yeah, so I kind of was glancing some more at the 2019 document, and after reading Odelia's the post of the exact verbiage, I was curious about if any PCEP members here, and once again, like Noelle just said, we are definitely not our whole group right now. There are many PCEP members missing, so the feedback isn't going to be as robust as maybe it normally would be, and we can kind of take time to think about and then maybe convene at a later date with some more robust responses. But looking at the training section, for example, on the document, I mean, there are quite a few things listed there. And the first two that came to my mind without even looking at the document was, like, again, the Community Police Academy, and also the monthly PPB hiring workshops. As far as reaching a more diverse or a wider community base, do we have any ideas or examples of what that we have in mind that aren't reflected in that document, I guess? That would be my question, I guess, for some of the PCEP members here tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Sarah's indicated that she's back on mic now, so I just wanted to give her a chance to introduce herself and also react to anything we're saying now, Sarah.
But we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Sarah. Not yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption. I was late getting here, so I didn't introduce myself, but I am Sarah Ames. I use she, her pronouns. I am a deputy city attorney. Here to advise PCCEP on matters of law. So, and I don't have anything to add. I think Mary Claire and the good folk at PPB who were not able to attend will be great resources for you. And I did add a couple little comments about some of the advisory committees and their status of some of them provide public meetings, some of them do not in the chat. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Dory, if you could remind me of the timing, that would be helpful. But Odelia, Devante, I think you spoke and you just haven't taken your hand down. Okay. Odelia, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to lose Devante's question, but while we have Sarah, I wanted to ask Sarah a question. I was just wondering if you can speak to like how this was reported as in compliance in the settlement agreement, or if you're familiar with any of that, and like why or how that's happened from the city's perspective. And we can't hear you again.
Still can't hear you.
Hi. Those are independent decisions made by the monitor team and before them the COCL, and I can't really speak to what information they evaluated to make those decisions. So
yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Dory?
Oh, if Mary Claire had a response to that, she can go ahead.
No, I just, I can't speak to, why that particular phrase, that engagement piece, but I can tell you that the community engagement paragraphs were, a lot more went into it. So they considered the activities that the Bureau was doing as well. So, Natasha has reported each time when we had to write a report for the COCL as to what activities, what community engagement activities and what, progress we were making on all these goals. So they did have information and, and they were also aware at the time that, PCCEP had indicated they didn't want to review it that year. So I can only speculate that, given the other activities and our work on it continuing, that they just didn't find that enough to find it out of compliance.
Thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, so I hate to leave a meeting confused, so because I want to be clear on what our next steps should be in my conversations with the PCCEP members. So I just wanted to get a little more clarity if possible, and I know maybe we don't have I know we don't have the PPB folks we would want to be asking this in this meeting, but based on the research that we did and speaking with people who work on PBB community engagement via email, and I also spoke with AC Lavelle about this, I was firmly under the impression that there was no acting bureau-wide community engagement governing document. Not to say that there isn't a ton of community engagement activity, but that there was no governing document that governed the strategy for all those activities. And now I feel like what has been said in this meeting is that the 2019 one is still active, but I'm curious if that's true, why no one would have mentioned it. And so I just want to be
Sure.
clear
No,
if that
I
is,
think
okay.
I think that's a fair question. I can only say that when I say it's still a living document, I mean the contents of it were. If you want me to tell you, I mean, I don't know that AC, if and when, I know that AC Lavelle was part of this. He was, I think, head of the, community. Well, where was he? He was in the chief's office at the time that, Chief Outlaw issued that letter to PCEP and what have you. So, but it's not like it's on that document per se would be on anybody's, radar all the time. So, I'm not saying, I just mean that it was created. It has been, an ongoing source of the activities of that thing, but I can certainly understand why, when these people tell you they didn't. I bet Chuck hasn't looked at this in a number of years, or some of the new members, because Natasha was probably the only one at that time. Well, she was an office of one. When this first was created, she was the community engagement officer, and over time that has grown. So just to be clear, when I talk about it being, still being, in effect, I mean all of these. You saw all our, the goals and the action items and stuff are still being, worked on a consistent and active basis. So.
Okay, I hear you. I think, yeah, because that's the heart of this question and this discussion is sort of kind of the spirit of what is outlined in the settlement relative to PCEP and that idea of a bureau-wide governing strategy, especially relative to some of the incidents that have piqued the community's interest this year. So hopefully I think we can surely find some alignment around that and kind of getting things updated and integrating a lot of what is what is written and what we have reviewed in this meeting. So and yeah, maybe the 2019 one is still a great place to start. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think we could use this, almost as the starting point if you want, and then, add to it or eliminate parts that have already been done, whatever, and then develop something, a newer, a fresher, or up-to-date document, I'm sure is, certainly possible. And if, as I said, the Bureau is more than happy to have PCEP's engagement again on this. So, I think we're all on the same page on that one.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Dory, are we going to 7:30 or is that the time tonight?
The meeting is scheduled till 8 as usual.
8, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so we're talking now, it seems like, about next steps. Devante, would you want to chime in?
I'll let you kind of get in the next steps, and then I guess my question was kind of like a return of my previous question, but I think Mary Claire kind of and Dory also kind of did a very good job of segueing into that. And basically it was just that, like, hey, if we are wanting the document to be updated, if there was any recommendations that PCEP members currently had about the document, but it sounds like we're going to probably over the next couple weeks or near future get into what should be removed, if there's something that should be added, if PCEP members didn't feel like it accurately reflected the current needs for community engagement at this time, which was kind of what my previous question was really trying to get at, is there anything wrong with this current document, or is it just that it hasn't been released a new one in the last several years? But is there anything wrong with the document itself inherently? That was what my question was really getting to. So thank you.
Thank you, Devante. Olivia? Odelia? Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, I think that's a great question, Devante, and I think we should all spend the next however much time thinking about that and reading through the plan. I'm curious too if the plan was updated, would that have to go to council?
Good question. I don't know, so if you're saying, oh, good Lord. You're saying that if the community engagement plan for PPB is updated, would council have to approve it? That's your question?
Yeah, and I don't know who anyone would have an answer to that.
Can anyone from the city help us with that?
I'd have to look up the language, to be honest with you. I think the PCEP plan was reviewed by the council, but I'm not sure. Well, I don't think this one was originally, but
I think it does. I'm just checking the city council record because it did go to council back then too. So, but I think I think this also begs a larger conversation about, again, codification and the PCEP plan needing to be updated as well. So there maybe is a lot of work that can happen that could bring, kind of some PCEP stuff forward to council, but throw that in. Not a side quest. We don't need another side quest, but.
Okay.
Sarah, did you have something to add to that or no?
No, I was just going to say that the original PCEP plan was approved by council as they created PCEP. It is rather out of date. PCEP has made some attempts in 2021. They actually proposed a different PCEP plan. And then we took another run at it in 2022. And I think have those documents for the draft city code, which is, pretty straightforward and minimal. And then it refers to a plan that it's kind of, if you look at city code, usually it's pretty, high level, how the agency is going to be structured and what their authority is. And then some of the details, like in the PCEP plan or in other documents or rules. So that's just where that stands.
Yeah, and I apologize. I thought the question was, does the Bureau's community engagement plan alone have to go to city council? Sorry.
Yeah, that was my question.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that that's the case at all. So, but we'll verify that.
Okay. And then I
PCEP
also,
plan was the one that had to, as Sarah said, originally had to go to council.
We have the text on the slide. I just don't know. I don't know what it means, but it does say like PBB develops a PPV community engagement plan in conjunction with PCEP, which will then need to be approved by city council. That's what it says. So whatever that means.
Yeah.
The links to the council documents, that too.
okay. And then Mary Clara, I think I heard you said that Captain Abramson is working on a new plan or maybe?
Yeah, I think what he had indicated, and sorry, like I said, before this came up, we just got the invite on Monday and he was already gone on vacation. So I haven't had a chance to talk to him. But what I had heard had started this was that he had had a conversation with a PCEP member and it indicated that he was, but right now I think it's just in the formulating stage. There is nothing written, which is fine because, this will be the time if you guys are going to play a role, then we'd obviously want, your input before we, finish the written document. So I think he's got ideas as the new captain of that unit and stuff like that, but I don't think that there is anything, well, I know there's no, because I did check with others in the unit, and there's no draft document yet or anything like that. So it's sort of, a thought process. They're trying to work out what that would look like under this, new system, because as I said, the unit has grown and so they're trying to figure out how to, formulate that.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I think whenever he's back from his trip and we can hear more about that, that would be helpful too, to know if we should work on like reviewing the 2019 plan or new content. So maybe that's something we'll just have to wait for.
Yeah, and if you want him to, to invite back, to do a follow-up, I mean, I know you're going to talk about next steps, but maybe it would be, worthwhile to, have this, follow up to this conversation next meeting as well. And he can, maybe give more detail to what he's been thinking, and then try and see how that sits with you folks, or how that might, jive with what you guys want to do to contribute to it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. It sounds like I don't see any other hands up right now, and it also sounds like we're discussing next steps, including getting answers to a list of questions, one of which is, what is the time? Is there a new plan in the works? And if so, what's the timing? Should we wait to review the new plan, or start looking at 2019 as the model that is still living? It sounds like another question is, how will PPB engage with PCCEP on either creating the new plan, updating the new plan, or socializing the new plan and getting community feedback? That's another question we have. And yeah, I guess that's what I've heard so far. Any other PCCEP members, do you have any other next steps besides getting answers to those questions and starting to mobilize our community engagement to get the feedback that we want on the plan that we'll review? Yes, Devante.
I think a good place to start would be if we can track down the whatever alterations was submitted by PCCEP in 2021 and 2022 to compare with the 2019 version, to kind of compare and contrast what PCCEP members at that time thought needed to be updated. I think that would be helpful.
Is that available now? Anybody?
I chuckled to myself when he said that. I don't know whether, I know that the first one incorporated the changes. I don't know if there's a document, and I don't know in PCCEP records whether they still, or you have any of those original records. I know Dory didn't come to this position until 22. So whether you have records of what you submitted. And then I know that I don't recall. We'd have to do a search. I can't say for sure that we'd have those, particular. But if you guys sent them, you might, be able to check on your end too, and I will check on our end.
Okay, thank you. PCCEP members, any other action items or questions to be answered as of now, before we move to either the next agenda item or public comments? I can't quite remember, sorry. Public comment. Yeah.
Dory, I was just wondering, do you have, is there a way you can show like the slides on the page right now? Because I only see just people. I don't know if it's maybe on my end or not.
Yes, we just went through all the slides before you got here. Is there a particular slide you'd like to see?
No, just kind of like the agenda list for the meeting.
The agenda list. Like the
Yeah.
Schedule. I think while they're pulling that up, I think the final bullet point was public input.
Okay, so we've covered pretty much everything.
It was all about the engagement plan and then identifying next steps.
Okay.
And we're ahead of schedule, so if PCCEP members still have input, and Noelle, please, if you have questions about what happened before you joined or other input, please feel free to do it now.
No, I don't have a lot of further input. I can look back to what other people have said. It's pretty straightforward. We just need to look at what the old documents are, what the one in 2022 are. We've already expressed our interest in being collaborative with PPB on their next community engagement plan, and that it has to be standalone from a racial equity plan. And then we'll just move forward in those steps,
Awesome. Yay.
Can we hear from the public on this topic and then do a public comment? Okay.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that's what I thought we were doing, but yes.
Okay, I was clarifying, but sounds like we're on the same page.
Former co-chair, I appreciate your guidance. Would the public like to comment on this topic now? Please raise your hand if you have question or input about the PPB's community engagement plan discussion we've been having. Barbara?
Hi, thank you. I'm glad that you're talking about making the PPB Community Engagement Plan effective to change the behavior of the PPB and the actual relationship of the PPB to different communities rather than just PR. And I think that's a very important focus. So thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Barb?
Hey y'all. Just thinking back historically, before, like in the fall of 2018 is when PCCEP was seated, and in 2019 was when I sort of became involved, and simultaneously something else was going on, which was this big 5-year strategic plan, Mary Claire, that the Portland police was doing. And for 2 years, I asked Mary Claire about that strategic plan. And I finally stopped. Because so many things shifted in 2020 that, things changed and priorities changed. I'm really glad you guys are getting back to that and to the community engagement plan. I do want to say that the behavioral health subcommittee that we had back in the previous iteration of PCCEP, we did work with the behavioral health unit on community engagement. And I don't remember what the plan, if there was like a plan written up, and if it was for more than a year or if it was just a general thing. And now, since there's been, in the last, 3 months, there's a new lieutenant in charge of the behavioral health unit. I'm not sure exactly, even, I guess I do know who to ask to look to see if there is a document. But I also wanted to say that last year, and I don't know about this year again because of the new lieutenant, but I have a feeling that the behavioral health unit is probably participating in NAMI walks this Sunday. So I know they do some things, but I'm really glad you guys are approaching it this way. And I would not hold my breath for anything other than the document you already have, and something if Captain Abrahamson says there's something that he's working on that he wants you to see. Anything in between that, I don't think you're going to see. More power to you if you do, but I wouldn't wait on it.
Thank you, Barb. Debbie?
So it sounds like you've got some things to sort out about, kind of understanding what the lay of the land is right now, but I think it might be worth considering, like, putting this on an annual schedule so that, once a year you have the people from the community engagement unit come and talk to you about all the things they've done the year before, and then revisit the plan. And I imagine if you did it every year, you probably would just need to make small changes and adjustments. And then, as Mary Claire points out, it's a living document, and that way you all could be involved in you know, keeping the life in that document by, you know, bringing it forward once a year and hearing from the community engagement units. And it would be very educational for those of us in the community who attend these meetings too, to hear what all's going on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie. All good points. Would anybody else from PCEP, the city, or public community like to comment on this particular topic regarding PPB's community engagement plan? At this time, please raise your hand. Mark, and please introduce yourself if you're affiliated with an organization or a group, please include that in your introduction.
Oh, thanks. Hi, I'm Mark Porras, he, him pronouns, with the group Portland Cop Watch. I don't really have anything to say, I guess, about the plan, but just to a little context, I feel like maybe we're here, you know, because of kind of what happened at those recent town halls, the city council town halls, and I just want to point out that at that March 2nd one, Councilor Canals, there were 5 police officers there, and they've all been with the Bureau for over 15 years. So I just wanted to leave that context there, because whatever plan this is, like, however it makes it to the officers, it's got to make it all the way to the cops that have been here forever. So just wanted to leave that.
Thanks for sharing, Mark. Before we move on to general public comment, is there anyone else who wants to comment on the discussion we're having about the community engagement plan for Portland Police Bureau at this time? Okay, we'll move on to general comments from any of the people attending this meeting. Any other issues you'd like to raise at this time? Do you have any comments about what we discussed? Do you have any ideas about what you'd like to see PCEP addressing in the near future? Does anybody have any new ideas about the community event we were talking about, educating people about the history of the settlement and the partners that created the motivation for DOJ to investigate and what came out of it? Thank you. Debbie?
So Debbie Iona, I just have a quick comment about the PPP annual report and the precinct meetings. In the past, it's been, and not, maybe not last year, but in years gone by, there have been some years it's been very difficult to find out when those meetings were scheduled. And I communicated with Mary Claire, and I was really, and mentioned to her, I thought she might want to put the announcement on that Rose City Connection email newsletter that the city sends out now. And I was so excited to see it was there, the one that just came recently. So I wanted to say thank you very much for that. If that hits a general audience, then not just people who are very interested in the police. I think it's a broader, I hope it means that more people will come to the precinct meetings, but you know, you never know. But thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for the suggestion, Debbie. You know, we wouldn't have thought of it, but as soon as you said it, we contacted them, and there it is. And there'll be a lot more on social media. We're going to blast it out a lot more, as well as each precinct has their own list, you know, listserv, so to speak, or, you know, contact list, and it'll be going out to the various groups. So, and, you know, PCEP should feel free to, you know, spread the word as well to any of their contacts.
Well, thank you.
Great, thank you. Odelia?
Yeah, just like a reminder for myself and then a question for folks, but you know, we still have that executive order looming. And I was just wondering if anyone from the city or PPB or anyone has like updates on anything behind that.
I can jump in. I don't have any specific updates, but I can tell you it's like there's a lot of effort in talking about and figuring out, you know, what next steps would look like. And a lot of it is because of the unpredictability of this administration, that's a little hard to plan ahead, but very, very much front of mind. And so hopefully we'll have a more substantive update soon. I don't have anything specific as of right now.
Thank you. That was a very interesting and meaty topic at our last meeting. And I personally felt very happy to hear how all the different people involved in the settlement agreements related to PCCEP talked about how good it's been and how all the parties have appreciated the relationship. So that doesn't mean that we're in the safe, but at least we're, as a community, we're working together. So that's good. Okay, Barb?
I think that's pretty much what I was going to talk about, which was the codification part of this. And if you guys want PCCEP to live on, I highly recommend that people reach out to their individual district counselors, or that PCCEP divide up the counselors in a way so that you can figure out how much support you have for something like that and how much what you need to do to get that support. Because I'm not sure, because of public meetings law, I have this weird feeling that I'm not sure you guys are allowed to invite all of them to come to a presentation about PCCEP or something kind of thing. There's just some wonky, and I could be wrong about that, but that's just kind of my suggestion.
Thank you, Barb. Does anyone want to react to what Barb said about inviting public officials, or does anyone have additional comments?
Yeah, I think when we have like a big meeting, I've been inviting all of council to come to hear, because a lot of the conversations we have, they're also having. And then I also know that they're all super busy with the budget, and getting meetings and getting on their agenda is really tough right now, and the timing is really rough on our end. And I know PCCEP doesn't abide by public meetings law, but I think we can still have a meeting with counselors and PCCEP and present PCCEP to them. I don't think that would be any violation of anything.
That's my understanding too.
I meant them with their public meetings law. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I don't advise the council on their public meetings law, but a quorum of a subcommittee would have to be, if they're deliberating towards a decision, which, kind of an interactive discussion with PCCEP about an eventual decision about codification, that might be an issue. So I think you're right to kind of be a little bit cautious about that. And I wouldn't say, Odelia, that PCCEP isn't subject to public meetings law. You do follow a lot of the requirements of public meetings law and posting meetings and having public meetings and interpreters and all sorts of things. So just
yes.
Yeah, I just was like, you don't have to comply, but you do. So
we should.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Lots of good information and lots of work ahead of us. Okay, so I'm going to leave the floor open for more public comments.
Carrie, I just wanted to kind of bring up too, just so everyone is reminded, that the Independent Police Monitoring Team's Town Hall is on May 28th. They have now selected a location for it and a time, so we will have that information as well posted. Or it can be found online with them as well.
Great. That's great. Thanks, Noelle. Okay. Yes, Mark.
Hey, Mark Boris again, Portland Copwatchie, him pronouns. Co-Chair Manyweather just mentioned briefly the PSU events that happened. And in what I believe that was Q2 of last year, and that is the quarter when there's no coverage, no independent coverage. The COCL didn't cover that, and the new independent monitor is not covering that. And I just want to keep that on everybody's radar because, and I think that an independent analysis of what happened, how PPB interacted with the public during that time period would be very important for a learning organization like the Portland Police Bureau so that they could maybe do better. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody have any follow-up thoughts about that or other topics?
I do yet again. Yeah, I agree, Mark, and I think it's a concern that that time won't and can't be monitored. And to respond to your comment, Barb, the COCL or the monitor cannot investigate that time as agreed to by in the court. So even if like we can't ask the independent monitor to go back to that time and do it. So last time we spoke about this, it would be something that PCCEP could potentially try to look into, but that would require all of PCCEP's kind of like agreement and buy-in, and we haven't really had that conversation yet, but I do think that that's super crucial. And at the same time, we are volunteers who don't get paid to do this, and the monitors can do this full time with money. So it is definitely harder, but it's something to keep in mind for us.
Thank you, Odelia. And just for everyone's knowledge, there were several PCCEP meetings where we discussed the PSU protests and incidents around that. And so the dialogue has, we've had some dialogue so far, but not any action items. Leslie.
Just on that, will there be a, like, I want to have that very clear in the report, the independent monitor report, that that time wasn't monitored, and have it be very, very clear. And then I'm wondering if whatever we do decide to have, like, I know we kind of default to town halls. I don't know if we can do like an informal survey, but like have it as an addendum that is not an official document, but something that is like an addendum to the independent monitor report as like an unofficial thing, just because it is really important. Like, it's such a bummer that that happened during a time where there wasn't any monitoring, because that's exactly what this independent of what like the settlement agreement was meant to, you know, to kind of, I don't know if like to address, I guess, right? Because yeah, everything can go great when times are good, but it's when there's conflict, when there's, you know, there's different things happening in the community that are remedies, quote unquote, and the things that the PPB is doing. That's really when it's important to make sure that, you know, that the community is okay with that. Because, you know, if there's no conflict happening, then there's no reason, you know, everything's fine. But it's when these instances and these things happen that we really are vetting whether these remedies are working, whether these things are actually getting fixed that we're trying to fix. So that's just kind of my thoughts around that. I don't know, an official addendum, however we come about that.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. That's a good point. So regarding PCCEP's engagement related to the issues that happened at PCC last year, Leslie's recommending or requesting that the independent monitor consider adding time and effort into including an addendum or some part of their report on that topic.
Is that possible?
Is that question for Annette and Antoinette?
I was thinking more like PCCEP, adds the addendum, since we were the ones that would be needing to do the work.
Yep.
Because the independent monitor, from what I understand, is not able to. But if there's something that we can come about, I don't know, that's where I was thinking, I don't know if it's an informal survey or something like that, that can be added. That would be, that can be added as an addendum, like, that would be, but at the minimum, the independent monitor report would say something like, we were not able to evaluate this time period where we know these things were happening. Please see the addendum for an unofficial analysis or evaluation or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I also wonder if we can make a recommendation to the mayor or like for someone else to investigate that time period too, if that addendum wouldn't work, to still keep it there. I don't know, Sarah, or if you can speak to if that's like the addendum thing is a possibility, or if it would make sense to move through council or the mayor.
Sarah, if you're available to answer that, we'll hear you first and then we'll move to you, Barb.
I was actually waiting to see if Stephanie took up the baton. I think, I mean, as I've discussed with Odelia, the monitor team was hired to do a specific job, and it was to do compliance reviews, outcome assessments, and that bundle of work from the time period when they started, July 1st on. So they have a 2-year contract, and it's very specific about what they need to do. I mean, they need to do what's in the settlement agreement, the review period, and they have plenty of work to do within that contract, and they, I'm sure, are not able to add more things at this point. I also, I think the city has done any event, I mean, there's always any use of force goes through an after action review by supervisors, and it goes up the chain. So there's a lot of mechanisms. If people had concerns about the way they were treated and they file complaints, those are investigated seriously by IPR. There's outcomes of those. So there's a lot of process where the city does, in real time, not a year later, review its actions, how things went, and whether there are lessons to be learned for the next time around. So I think, that happens as part of the course of regular practice at PPB, that it is trying to learn in real time and to review and to make sure things were done according to plan, and if not, how they might be done better. But I don't think, I know I attended some of those meetings, and I heard some of those accounts of what transpired, and I'm not sure that there's not more to the story than that, and that there should not be, we shouldn't go into this with an assumption that PPB engaged in misconduct during that time. And that's just what I think. If you wanted to do some more fact finding, that would certainly be possible.
Thank you, Sarah. That's very helpful. Appreciate it. Barb?
So you guys, one of the reasons PCCEP is independent is because it's just the DOJ against the city, which includes the police. And even though they provide an attorney and staff, it's still in the city government's best interest in their own mind to spend the least amount of money on anything that they think might be frivolous, which might include PCCEP or extra things like that. So just keep in mind that things like, if the settlement agreement goes away, well, no, let me change that. If the stuff goes down with the 60-day thing, I think it's really awesome that Judge Simon is the final word with the settlement agreement rather than it can just be dismissed like some of the other agreements. Completely separate thought. For that time period, if you guys start to think that you want to do analysis of it on your own, or even if not, I suggest you guys reach out to Yumi Delgado and the CRC to see if they're doing anything about that time period and if they want to do anything with PCCEP. After the George Floyd stuff in 2020, they did a really, really good report. And the other thing would be to find out through IPR how many, what do I want to say? How many complaints have been filed during that time by people and where they are in that process. I think that's it.
Okay. Hey, Barb, can you just for the public share what the acronym CRC and IPR mean?
Really? As in, it's too late for me to remember, not anyway.
No, I understand. We try to explain acronyms as much as we can.
Citizen
IPR is
Committee.
independent. Oh, I'm sorry. You're going to talk over me. Go ahead.
I think she was trying to help. I think she thought you were too tired, Barb, but we'll pass it back to you.
Or if Barb
I just don't fight over microphones. It's not that big of a deal. IPR is independent police review. And CRC is something review committee, and it comes after IPR, as in once the complaints come through, Citizens Review Committee. Thank you. It's in the chat. See, you didn't need me.
Well, thank you, Barb. It's always great to have public members like you raising awareness about other organizations that are doing work in this area. So thank you so much. Okay, I think we have about 9 minutes or more left, but I guess we'll do a last call for comments and then we'll move on to just reminders and announcements. So if anybody has anything to add, please raise your hand now. It looks like people have spoken. So do we have some closing slides, Dory? Noelle, do you want to cover these?
Sure. So it looks like, the one I just remind everyone of is the Independent Monitors Town Hall on Wednesday, May 28th. That'll be between 6 and 8:30. It is going to be a hybrid meeting, so you can be there in person as well as online. They've picked the location as a McMinimans Kennedy School location. That's going to be in Northeast Portland area. So that'll be a great meeting. That's going to be coming up. Let's see what else we have. Yeah, I think that's about it of wrapping things up. It's kind of a hurry up and wait game right now just because everybody is either absent or on vacation or we're making some transitions, but I appreciate the public's patience as well as everyone else for being here and being collaborative. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate all of your opinions, especially the stuff about the PSU. I've heard that many times here, and I appreciate people still continuing to make awareness on it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Good meeting, good discussion. Thanks for our city folks for engaging. We know this is not necessarily what you engaged on is not necessarily your explicit area of expertise, but we appreciate the information you shared. And yeah, I thought it generated some ideas for me. I hope for our PCCEP members too, and some important next steps. So we appreciate you all, and thanks for coming tonight. See you next time.